Hey! Get back here!
Not a chance!
Welcome to the Arena Hero. This is David from Unison Games Cafe. You are watching this video because you are a loyal subscriber to our YouTube channel, or you scan the QR code on the back of your custom starter deck right here. Either way, this video is meant to inform you of this deck's contents, some strategy on how to play it, and ways to upgrade it with cards you've purchased from your local game store or that you have in your collection. In this video, we'll be discussing the Mechanologist. As you can see here, this is Inventor Extraordinaire of the Mechanologist class. More so, this video will be a great resource to those who are looking into some insight on how to play the class, how they function in the game, and some strategies you can take advantage of. Without further ado, let's open this up and get started. Alright, when you open your deck, you'll be presented with a ready-to-go constructed deck here in this bag. You have everything you need to play a game of Flesh and Blood right here. The rest of these cards are the remaining cards that make up the playset of every common card for this hero from Arcane Rising. So these are the rest of the Mechanologist cards. And we also have, specifically for the Mechanologist, some generic cards that might be helpful should you decide to customize this deck. Let's take a look at what you get in your constructed deck. We'll spread those cards out. Alright guys, a lot of stuff to focus on, but first things first, the Mechanologist class. Let's take a look at Dash and see how she works. I'm going to zoom in here. So Dash has an ability here that just allows you to start the game with a Mechanologist item that costs 2 or less in the arena, ready to go. Now, one of the main cards that you'll see people use that actually isn't in this list is Induction Chamber, and that helps with your pistol shooting. Now, cards that you could start with in this starter deck are cards like Hyperdriver, which allows you to remove a steam counter and gain resources as you boost. We'll get into boosting in 1 second. You could also start with something like a Cognition Node, which allows you to maintain and keep cards going to the bottom of your deck. You'll notice that Mechanologist likes to go fast, and when that happens, you can run out of the deck very quickly. You also have Convection Amplifiers, which allows you to dominate and really make sure that your cards and damage push through. So, the ability on Dash is kind of second in nature to how Mechanologist plays. Mechanologist uses the keyword boost. So on a lot of the cards, you'll see down here, boost. As an additional cost to play Overloop, you can banish the top card of your deck. If it's a Mechanologist card, Overloop gains Go Again. So when you boost, the card that you're boosting gets Go Again. That's what allows you to continue to get action points and continue to keep going. So if you were to play the card in question, Overloop, and this was your deck, you would banish the top card of your deck. It's a Mechanologist card. This gets Go Again. That is really the main mechanic of Dash. So in the perfect world, you Overloop, successfully boost, get your action point back, maybe play 0 to 60, successfully boost, get your action point back, finish off with a zipper hit, boost or not, but what you're looking at here is something very similar to like the Ninja, where now you're coming in for 5 damage. That's 14 damage in 1 turn. Resource-wise, you've only used 3 resources. Now, your deck is your resource. You've also lost 3 cards off the top of your deck. So, a lot of what you want to do is make sure that this damage sticks. Your opponent might try to block in hopes that you'll kind of run out of steam, no pun intended. That's why we've got things like Convection Amplifier that, as an action, remove a steam counter from Convection Amplifier. The next attack you play this turn gets Dominate. So you want to make sure that Overloop sticks. You can give it Dominate, and that way you can at least push some damage. So Boost is the main mechanic that you're looking to do. Also, a great way to build Mechanologist is to really focus in on your pistol. There's a lot of items and a lot of synergies to getting the pistol to attack multiple times. One of them we'll talk about a little bit later with cards that you might want to upgrade this deck with. and that is Induction Chamber. But simply, as an action, you can remove a steam counter to attack. So it's very similar to all the other weapons that you're going to see in this game. An action, to put that steam counter that you need to remove to attack, you could pay 1 to put a steam counter on it. So it's a great way to, because it does have go again, it's a great way that if you do your math and you realize you're going to have a leftover resource, throw a steam counter on your pistol. Worst case scenario, you boost 3 times like you just saw, and if you got nothing else to do, you can at least come in for another 2 damage. So the pistol is very cool for that. Let's take a look at the equipment. All right, equipment. The namesake card is in the leg slot, and that is the Achilles Accelerator. As an instant, you can destroy this to gain an action point. You can only activate this as if you have boosted this turn. Now, it doesn't mean you successfully boosted, meaning that you banished a card and it was a Mechanologist card. The act of boosting is all that this needs. So let's say you actually miss. Let's say you put some cards in here that are generics. The starter deck here has a back alley break line as your only generics in the card. So that would not let you successfully boost. You can Achilles Accelerator to get an action point when that happens. You also have Arcane Barrier built in, which is great against Wizards and the Rune Blade. More of those in those videos, but this is how you're going to defend against arcane damage. Achilles Accelerator, super good. Make sure that you don't peter out when you're in the middle of a combo turn. In our arm slot, we have Iron Rock Gauntlets for some defense and Null Rune for some arcane defense. Same thing with the chest slot. You've got the Iron Rot Plate and the Null Rune Robe. And then it gets a little bit different when you get to the head slot. You've got your Iron Rot Helm because you do need defense. The last thing you want to be doing is defending with cards from your hand because you want to be able to boost as many times as you can during a turn. What might allow you to do that is Talismanic Lens. This also helps you when you opt to. So if you do either change this deck, maybe you put some more generics in, maybe you've got some defense reactions, as an instant, you can opt to make sure that that top card is something that you want. Namely, if you're about to boost a Mechanologist card, or if you have some other effect that discards from the top of your deck, you want to make sure that you know what that card is. Or if you're drawing for your turn and you want to draw into some cards. So those are your equipment pieces. All right, let's first take a look at some of the rares that you're going to be getting in your constructed deck. What we've got here, like you saw, Dash can start the game with an item in play. Convection Amplifier is an item, as you can see down here. When it enters the arena, it enters with 2 steam counters on it. When it has no steam counters, you destroy it. But what the steam counters do is it allows you to remove a steam counter to give your next attack action Dominate. That way you can push the damage that you're trying to do. Overloop coming in for 5. If you dominate this, there's a good chance that 2 damage is going to go through because they defended with 3. So Convection Amplifier, a cool item that you're able to utilize to really push some damage, especially toward the later turns. You might start the game with Convection Amplifier in play and just leave it because as your opponent is getting down to low health, you might want to start giving your attack actions Dominate, and that's going to really help you out. Don't forget that if you have Convection Amplifier, let's say with a couple tokens on it, you could activate this, give the next card Dominate, play a card, now it's dominated. When you boost, you'll get an action point back. You can use the action again, it's not a once per turn action, to give the next card Dominate, and then you boost with that one. So you can really have a big damage turn. We also have Pour the Molds, which allows you to take an item from your hand. So let's say you actually draw into one of those Convection Amplifiers. You can take a card from your hand. This one says with 2 or less or 0 and less. The Convection Amplifier does cost 0, so Pour the Mold Blue gets it in there. If you have boosted this turn, put a steam counter on it, and then go again. So a great way to cheat something out because, especially with the red one, you can get something out that costs more than 0. Something like the next rare you're going to see. And it's going to give you additional steam counters on it. We do have a one of Cognition nodes. Cognition nodes gives you a action. If there are no steam counters on it, you can put a steam counter on it, just like the pistol. Once per turn as an attack reaction, you can remove a steam counter to give an attack action card. If it hits, put it on the bottom of your deck. So that's super cool. If your opponent, especially if you gave it Dominate with something like Convection Amplifier, and your opponent is going to let some damage go through, you are going to be banishing constantly off the top of your deck. If you want to make sure this red overloop stays to the end of the game, make it go to the bottom of your library. That way you know you're going to have it in a later turn. We also have, as an attack action, Pedal to the Metal. which is one of the better cards for Mechanologist. If it hits, the next attack this turn gets Dominate, and it has Boost. So just like you saw with the Overloop, essentially the same costs, same attack, but with the added benefit of a built-in Convection Amplifier. So you're going to come in for 5, you're going to boost. Let's say you had Convection Amplifier, give this Dominate itself. When this hits, it will just give your next card Dominate. If you can start a turn by activating Convection Amplifier to give Pedal to the Metal Dominate, and then come in with something like an Overloop, then use the last Convection Amplifier token to come in with something else, you could have 3 attacks during a turn that all are going to be dominated. So you know some damage is going to go through. Great strategy at the end of the game. And then we have from Crucible of War, we have High Speed Impact. High Speed Impact, I got the yellows and the blues here. If High Speed Impact hits, the next attack you boost gains Dominate. Very similar to Pedal to the Metal. You'll notice it's a little bit weaker, but we're looking more or less for that Dominate. We're looking to give the next card Dominate and maybe push some damage as well. You'll notice that it has a lower resource cost. So High Speed Impact you can come in with. They're going to probably want to block this, or else their next card is going to get Dominate. If they don't, something like a Pedal to the Metal on the back end of this is really going to hurt, because that's also going to give something Dominate. So High Speed Impact. We got the blues and the yellows to be cognizant of the fact that you do need resources, and you don't want to be all reds in Mechanologist, because you might just peter out. Let's get into some of the commons that you're going to see in the deck. All right, the first preview card from Crucible of War we've got a 3 of is Combustible Courier. 2 cost, 4 damage. If it hits, the next attack you boost gets +3. It's got a built-in boost, or a built-in buff. Really cool. They're definitely going to want to block this. That's why we've got the red one. We've got that 4 cost. If you happen to have Convection Amplifier in play when you play this to give it Dominate, there's a good chance you're going to hit, because you're going to give it Dominate. There's a good chance you're going to hit, and this is going to give your next attack maybe something like the High Speed Impact +3. Now it's coming in for 6. Good chance that this is going to hit to give the next card Dominate, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you guys can kind of see what we're trying to do here with Mechanologist. Good old gotta go fast.
I want to go fast.
So some of the main cards that you're going to be using is Overloop. It's one of your bigger attacks, big hit. If it does hit, it goes in the bottom of your deck, so you'll constantly be cycling these. Do not be afraid to pitch any of these cards, because when you actually do use them, they will come back, go on the bottom of your deck. That's Overloop, which looks very similar to Throttle, but Throttle is one of your bread and butter cards. It is the highest attack that you have here. Just baseline boost, 2 resources, very easy to play. And then some of your better cards, because they don't cost as many resources, are your 0 to 60s. Because again, you're just trying to push some damage, and these cost 0. So 0 to 60 costs 0. Great way to start a chain, especially as you have some cards that want to hit. If you can get them to block your 0 to 60, you might be able to get through with either a Pedal to the Metal or something that cares about hitting. And then you have Zipper Hit, which is just a slightly bigger 0 to 60. It does cost 1 as opposed to 0, but you're going to get more damage pushing through with Zipper Hit. Into some of our just basic actions, you've got 3 Locked and Loaded. The next Mechanologist attack action you play this turn gets +3. If you boosted, you opt 1. So something like a 0 to 60 to start it off, boost that. After you get your action point back, you can play a Locked and Loaded to give it +3 for the next attack, and then that's when you can come in with something like a High Speed Impact that's now 6, that cares about hitting, to give Dominate, and then you can come in with something like a Throttle, like a Combustible Courier, something that now has Dominate because you played Locked and Loaded and buffed it up. That's Locked and Loaded. And then another common item that you can either start the game with or get out with one of your cards is Hyperdriver. So when you boost a card, remove a Steam counter from Hyperdriver and gain 1. Now, you could have multiple Hyperdrivers in play. This is what's really going to keep you going, because this comes into play with 3 Steam counters on it. If you used something like a pour the mold to get it out, you're going to get an additional steam counter on it. But for all those cards like Zipper Hit, like 0 to 60, when you boost, you're going to gain resources back that you either used, or even something like a 0 to 60, you're just going to gain a resource even though it costs 0. And that's going to be floating resources for you to get some of your bigger 2-cost, like Combustible Courier, like Throttle, like Overloop, to really push damage. Hyperdrivers are super cool in this deck. And then last but not least, we have a generic card. Now you're probably thinking, well, if I banish this with boost, this isn't going to trigger my go again on the attack action. So that's going to really slam the brakes on. Back Alley Break Line, if an activated ability or action card effect puts this face up into a zone, gain an action point. So it's got its own kind of built-in boost itself. If you were to discard or banish this off the top of your deck when you boost, you're not going to get the boost effect and go again, but you're just going to gain an action point. So super cool little techie thing. If you need to come in as an attack, you can do that. It is a 5 attack for the cost of 1, but it's just one more card to put on the top of your deck that's going to keep you going. And those are the cards that you're going to find in your constructed deck. All right, guys, let's talk about cards that you can add to this deck that might push it over the edge. 2 of the best cards I think that could find their way into this deck. We talked about it earlier in the video, and that is Induction Chamber. Induction Chamber costs 2, but with Dash, you can start the game with it. What that's going to allow you to do, it's going to give your pistol go again. So there's a lot of turns where you can just use some extra resources, put steam counters on your pistol, put steam counters on Induction Chamber, and then you can have turns where you boost a couple times and then shoot your pistol, remove a counter from Induction Chamber, shoot your pistol again to keep it going. All those 2 damage hits is very similar to how Ninja plays with the Kodachis that come in for 1 damage. But all those 2 damage hits will really start to add up. And as you give your attacks dominate, you can really push some damage toward the end. Another great card that sometimes, depending on whether or not you are playing a very fast boosting deck, but Teklo-Core. Teklo-Core is another item that you can start the game with, but this is an item that I think you want to draw into, because what it does is it allows you to have it in the field, and then the next turn you're just going to gain 2 resources. So it's a great way to play a Throttle or a big attack that typically you have to kind of think about or save up for. You could play one of those essentially for free. Free resources allows you to boost multiple times a turn. Teklo-Core, I think, is a strong candidate for a card to add to this deck. Those are a few cards I would be on the lookout for from your local game store, or you can head over to www.unisongamescafe.com, see if we have them in stock. Other than that, this has been the starter strategy video for Mechanologist. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Flesh and Blood content, and we will see you in the arena.